You're listening to Feel Good Astrology with Louisa Tanner Munson. To request a personal reading with Louisa, go to www.feelgoodastrology.com.
Hi, it's Louisa Tanner Munson from Feel Good Astrology, and I'd like to welcome you to this podcast about the North Node and its effects in the 11th house. So what I mean by this is I'll be taking a look at how the North Node functions in your birth chart if you're born with it in your 11th house, and what will happen if the North Node is currently transiting, i.e. moving through your 11th house. So we're trying to get an idea of what the North Node is and its relationship to us. So I'm just going to start on with the North Node, which really is our descriptor of where we're going in life from a karmic perspective. So the North Node looks at what we're currently learning from the karmic need, and the South Node, which always goes hand in hand with the North Node. The South Node is at completely the opposite point on the birth chart to the North Node. So if your North Node is 10 degrees Scorpio, for instance, your South Node will be 10 degrees Taurus, exactly opposite, 180 degrees around. It's a full semicircle. So the South Node shows where we're coming from, and it could represent the kind of the past life message that we've had, the past life karma, what we've done well in our past lives and what we've achieved and understood on a soul level. And the North Node shows us where we're now going because we've already achieved a certain level of mastery. So the North Node in the 11th house then is showing that our karmic pathway in our life is currently being expressed through the 11th house. And we need to understand what the 11th house represents as well. Traditionally, the 11th house is to do with the sign of Aquarius, which is ruled by Uranus and partly by Saturn. So it's about, I see it as being a very communal and organized space to do with a flat level hierarchy. So it's not a place of building empires, definitely not. It's not a place of finding a way to become higher up the food chain than everyone else. It's not that. The 11th house seems to be a place of friendships and connectedness. So it's a little bit different from the 12th house. The 12th house is about connection to everything, like the Akashic, the source energy, the whole power of the universe, and beyond that, because obviously there are universes, and more and more and more. And we just don't know how big and vast everything is. So that's the 12th house in a nutshell. But the 11th house is about being connected to things that we can understand and can see and can conceptualize. So friendships, network groups, organizations. The 11th house shows up in the charts, quite prominently in the charts of charities and anything that serves to help humanity, not just the ego running it, if that makes sense. So, I've met very few Aquarians that are so striving that they'll, let their brother and sister down, if you know what I mean. It's very much a flat hierarchy. If you do well, and if that person over there does well, then we all prosper. It's that kind of thinking. As with all house delineations, I always look at the opposing house. So the opposing house to the 11th is the 5th house, which is where your South Node is at birth if you've got a North Node in the 11th. Now, the 5th house is about creativity, and it's very personal creativity. It's about the creations that come from your womb and from your sacred, the stuff that you're born with, people seem to be born with little skills and talents and a kind of knowing. It's that place. The 5th house often represents, forming relationships and flirtations and dating and sex and lovemaking, but kind of initiated, new sex and lovemaking. It's a place of romance. It's a place of innocence. It's a place of colour and joy. The fifth house is traditionally ruled by the sign of Leo, which is very innocent and childlike, etc., very creative. But it's this personal creation, because like love, sex, and all that comes from your drive to procreate. Oh, it also represents children, like giving birth and pregnancy and stuff, the conception. It's the whole idea of creating something out of nothing. And it could be from creating, emotions, from creating people, to creating artwork and theatre and stuff like that. It could be any kind of creation. So that's personal creation. Now, back to the 11th house, I see the 11th house as being something to do with intrapersonal creation, or generational creation, or unconscious creation, connected creation. Co-creation, that's the word I'm looking for. So the 11th house is the place of co-creation. So if you're familiar with the teachings of Abraham Hicks, or the idea, if you've watched The Secret, the idea of the law of attraction is perfect for the 11th house. I see the 11th house as being the place of the law of attraction in action. So it is also quite a magical place where, I guess if you've got your North Node in the 11th house, then it shows you've already done and dusted the stuff in the 5th house. Your South Node is in the 5th house, which shows that you've already come into this lifetime with an understanding of creation and being able to create at a very personal level, and the satisfaction that involves. And so your next sort of karmic challenge in this lifetime is to get even more creative by understanding the power of people and the power of doing it with associations and relationships with others. So it's a deeply, deeply exciting place to be. But it's also a place where you need to learn not to be detached, and where you learn to reconnect to people. A 5th house South Node really shows a lot of luck, at just finding yourself being very creative, but you really own that creation. And so your challenge with the North Node, sorry, I'm fidgeting a little bit. Your challenge in having the North Node in the 11th house is learning to want to create something, but not to own it. It's kind of co-creation and co-ownership. So it's really quite far out. The ideas of, the new age and the ideas of hippie theories of, nobody owning anything, but everyone sharing anything. That's your current challenge in your life with the North Node in the 11th house, is this, how willing are you going to be to let go of those personal goals and embrace the interpersonal? How are you going to do that? Now, I guess a lot of it does depend on your upbringing, the willingness that your own parents and the environment that you were born into to let go of personal goals and embrace goals that serve the community, is going to make a huge difference. If you've been brought up with kind of socialist values, or communist values even, or even hippie values that, show that we're better when we're all equal, or we're better when we can celebrate each other's differences, but not consider that one person's difference is more special than another's, then you'll be fine. And this North Node will be quite an easy one to accomplish. I don't think the 11th house is that tricky, to be fair, unless you've got, quite a tricky planet that's in tricky aspects to other big planets. The 11th house is supposed to be a breeze. It's your path to finding freedom, and your path to finding really good friendships where you can totally rely on each other and trust each other. So, as North Nodes go, this is a more benign one, I think, and a more enjoyable one. So with a North Node in the 11th house, I would say one of your biggest skills in this lifetime is to embrace the powers of the law of attraction. What you think about, you bring about. Because once you think it into being, once you write it down, you're asking the universe, I guess, to co-create with you, to co-inspire. And then you sort of give it up to the universe. You give up this idea that it's okay for life to furnish you with the right contacts to make those dreams become a reality. So this is a lifetime that you can play with, I think. And it might be a lifetime where you actually campaign and work in social ways to enhance the life of humanity as a whole. And that's great too. I guess one of the things that you need to work on in this life, especially if you are a campaigner type, which so many are these days, is to realize that whilst you are campaigning, it needn't be personal. The more personal you make it, the more difficult it is for your message to get out. So, it's fine to be pro something, but all the time you're pro something, you're also against something else. And the things that you're against create opposition in your life. Now, the 11th house is so much more adequately served where everything can be seen as part of a continuum. So the things that you're against, fundamentally, if you can start to see that there's a continuous, like a continuum bridge between that position and the position you're in, then it's much easier to move people and inspire people to create with you than it is when you create exact opposition. Like when you're saying, I'm for this, I'm against that. The people who fall in the against category will automatically be feeling oppositional to you. So there's a lot going on. I've been a campaigner type myself, and I seem to be very positional at times. And I put that down largely to the fact that I've got Pluto in my 11th house. And it's in a huge T-square to Saturn and Venus. In fact, a grand square to Saturn, Venus and Chiron. So it creates a very strong positional energy in my chart, which, is one of my life learnings, is how to become less positional and to see everything as a shade of grey, so that people that I encounter don't feel like they're being judged by me. That's the challenge for your lifetime. Now, if the North Node is going through your 11th house, then this is a much more exciting prospect, because I think this is your time to start celebrating again. So if the North Node is currently going through your 11th house, it will have recently, in the last 18 months, been in your 12th house, where all hell broke loose in your unconscious mind, and you very well may have felt you'd lost your mind and been possibly a bit sort of depressed because your world view on how everything fitted together was completely blown apart. And your challenge was to learn that it's okay to let go of things and not hold on so tightly. So where the North Node currently is moving into the 11th house for you, is representing a time when, through having all of your views blown apart and through recognizing that actually you are part of something huge and vast, you are part of creation. You're not this isolated person. You are actually part of something. Through that, it becomes so much easier to experience the magic of the law of attraction. So, it is a time when you can start to make clear goals about what you would like from a completely altered mindset, from a place of, where most people are thinking about selfish gain. And I say selfish, that sounds really judgmental, but self-directed place. So you're not in a self-directed place, but your value system will have changed quite considerably in the last 18 months. And now you're ready to make goals and more aligned with humanity and more aligned to what serves the ultimate good for everybody. And you can see the benefits that those kind of goals will have on your life. So, whilst it's still coming from you, you're so much more willing to allow others to co-create with you and help you achieve your goals. So that's a really good time. It also might show that you're going through a time of not necessarily campaigning, but being a lot more upfront about what you stand for. And to be fair, you stand for love now. You've had a bit of a value system shift in recent years. So this is a bit of a golden time for you. It means the South Node is currently in your 5th house, showing that also recently, the South Node would have been in your 6th house and then into your 5th house, which is where it currently is, which shows a certain level of mastery. So even though your life was falling apart in different ways in the last 18 months, you are still managing to be masterful in your day-to-day and keeping routines, and you've done that. And you are already coming from a place of being highly creative and capable in creating. So, your real task at the moment is enjoying it and inviting people to join you to create with you. Anyway, I hope that's useful. As ever, if anything rings a bell, or you're going through this transit yourself, or the North Node is in your 11th house and you want to talk about it some more, then feel free to give me a shout and book a consultation. I can be reached at Louisa, that's Louisa, at feelgoodastrology.com. Take care.
You've been listening to Feel Good Astrology with Louisa Tanner Munson, and this recording has been made possible by all you lovely supporters at Patreon. To request a personal reading with Louisa, go to www.feelgoodastrology.com.